I get a phone call thinking that I'm about to get the assignment for my next tour, but it was that phone call saying that, hey,
Today on the show, we have a former college hooper, speaker, actor, and former member of the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters. Herb Flight Time Lang is up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today's guest hails from Brinkley, Arkansas, just right up the road from Memphis, Tennessee, where he was an all-state standout and senior class president. He went on to play college hoops for Centenary College of Louisiana in Shreveport, where he led the Transamerica Athletic Conference in scoring and won the National Association of Basketball Coaches Slam Dunk Contest on ESPN. After graduation, he spent 18 years as a player and coach with the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters, traveling to nearly 90 countries. He's a speaker, actor, entrepreneur, motivator, and author. He's even competed on CBS's The Amazing Race. But above all, he's a true believer that we are all rich with love and kindness and stands firm that kindness is free. Welcome to the show, Herb Flight Time Lang.
Jeez.
Hey, well, first of all, hey, thank you both. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Mike, for having me on. I have been following the show since the first couple of episodes. I've enjoyed the growth of the show as well as the consistency. So, I mean, it's an honor for me to be a part of a show that I see has such a bright future.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Before we get into our conversation with Flight Time, we would love for you to take a few minutes and show us some love by giving us a 5-star review on Apple. These reviews help other people find the podcast and help spread all the knowledge that our guests have lived. Now, let's get into our conversation with Flight Time. I got to get used to saying that. I just want to call you Herb.
That's fine. That works for me either way.
Me and Herb go back. We go way back. We go back 20 some odd years. That's, you getting old when you can say you've had a friend for that long. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a childhood friend. That's when you know you're getting up in age. When I was
a couple of decades.
In 20 something, 20 plus years. I was like, that's crazy. I remember the first time I met you, it was actually in Prescott, Arizona, wasn't it?
Yep. That's where it was at. My first training camp. I think that was your third or fourth at that point. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, but I already had it. I could tell, man. I knew you were gonna be it, man. I didn't know you were gonna I knew you had it, but I didn't know your career would extend this long and do this much. So, man, I always tell people I take the credit that I kind of raised you from the beginning, man. So I'm very proud of you, Herb.
Hey, I can certainly give you that credit. And for me, growing up in Brinkley, I mean, that's just an hour from where, I grew up to Memphis, and
right.
Had two schools that I rooted for. That was Memphis State and Arkansas Razorbacks. So I was already very familiar with Michael and those battles against Georgetown and Louisville, back in those days. And when I had an opportunity to actually meet him and potentially be a teammate of his, I mean, it was a natural fit. I knew people from Memphis. I had cousins. I spent plenty of time over there. So it was a blessing to be able to even be a part of a team with a guy like that. And I mean, our relationship just grew from there to several times as roommates at training camp and just hanging out with each other when I would come back to Arkansas, driving over to Memphis. We talked about that a few times, but just great memories. And that's what it's all about. With that opportunity that the Globetrotters gave us, it also gave us some additional brothers.
Exactly.
When the last time I saw you in person? Last year, right? When you came to DC, you came to DC and visit. Was it last year or was it the year before?
It was the year before. Yeah, year before. Made a road trip up to New York. My wife and I remember stopped and seen you on the way back, and had a chance to see my son play some football. So yeah, we have to reconnect again sooner than later.
Yeah, man, that's a small world, man. Where we took that picture, I remember we was on the rooftop, and me and you, we took a picture, and man, in that picture behind us, you can see our teammate's boat. You can see Johnny Rhodes' boat. His boat is there, right there in the picture, man. It's so funny, man, about, how things, it's such a small circle. This world is such a small place, man. And I was like, wow, I went back and looked at the picture. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I definitely remember that. And we didn't even realize that was his boat. I mean, they had a boat back there at the time.
Isn't that kind of a small world, though? And also, really being able to see come full circle where you are now versus where you started. So let's talk about Brinkley, Arkansas. You grew up in Brinkley, Arkansas. It's a relatively small town. What was that like for you growing up there, and how did you start playing basketball?
Oh man, for me growing up in Brinkley, Arkansas it was quite an experience. It was my experience. It was my life. It was the way I grew up. It's a small town, like you said. It's one exit off of Interstate 40 that sits right between Little Rock and Memphis. And it wasn't always easy for me growing up in that small town. My mother had me at a young age. She was 17 years old. By the time she graduated from high school, she had myself and my sister. And so we grew up until I was about 9 years old on Chicago Street, which is the project pretty much
Right.
in a small town of about 3,000 people. And I remember there were times when we didn't have lights on. We had rats and roaches, running through the house because there were rice fields behind, the
Right.
projects. But one of the cool things about it was within that neighborhood, the projects, I had several aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody that lived around. So we never really, struggled. If somebody didn't have something, we could go to the next person and vice versa. So, we didn't know what we didn't have
Right.
at the time. So it was quite an experience. And then I remember moving out of the projects into a newly built home. I don't know how my mom pulled it off, but there was six of us. We moved into a different side of town. We started taking the bus to school, still going to the same schools, and
Right.
still having a lot of family back there to kind of support because that's where a lot of my friends lived at. But as I got a little bit older, into probably around seventh grade, that was my first opportunity to play really organized sports because there was no YMCA's or Boys
Right.
and Girls Clubs or anything like that in Brinkley. So I was really excited for the opportunity. And at that point, is when I met my what I say seventh grade basketball coach, but he was my coach all the way throughout high school, and he was really a great mentor to me. His son was my best friend. We were in the same grade, and he just really taught me all the fundamentals and life skills that I needed, not only on the court but also off the court. He taught me the importance of education. He had already
Right.
been in the system and had plenty of players come through over the course of probably 25 years. So he would share with me stories of guys who were really good athletes that just didn't, have it, what he called
Right.
coachable,
Right.
inability to receive, constructive criticism, and things like that. And so for me, having him kind of as my mentor and having him drive me back and forth to different AAU practices with his son, it really shifted my life, along with the support of a lot of other people in my family, my mom, my parents, my grandparents. That was another cool thing. Growing up in a small town like that, I had my grandparents on both
Right.
sides. I had my great grandfather, my great grandmother, and just being able to get wisdom from them and be able to spend time with them, weeks at a time, months at a time, are things that I value, and I think that kind of led to the success that I've been able to have, and people speaking up for me and giving me opportunities based on my hard work and the way that I carried myself. But I've always tried to carry that on throughout my life.
So
Speaking of
what
hard work, Herb, I
oh,
know your upbringing. What that's what makes one thing great. I think it was similar in a sense that you're not afraid to even do the little things, whatever it takes to get it done. I remember all the stories you told me growing up, man, from the catfish pond to somebody's taking your shoes till the chicken your grandmother used to prepare in the front yard, and you guys used to just run all over the place when she used to just prepare the chicken for things like that. How did that help you, man? I'm sure it did, but how much did that play in molding you into working hard, hard work?
Well, I'd say for me, when I was in ninth grade, my mother met who is now my stepfather, and he was a fish farmer. One of the only, if not the only African American fish farm in the whole state of Arkansas. And so my summers were filled with, going out to the farm and actually pulling what's called the seine haul, the length of what could be a couple of acres of pond. And, they've changed their mechanics up a little bit now. They actually have tractors and trucks that they put on the end. But I think that hard work in the early mornings, pulling thousands of pounds of fish in the heat and transferring them from, the pond to the trucks. These are things that made me work hard in college. These are things
right.
that made me study harder in high school, which allowed me to graduate with honors, which allowed me to graduate college, as one of the top student athletes. I knew what hard work was all about, and even with regards to the farm, it was something that I enjoyed. It was just something that I I wasn't passionate about. It taught me that, hey, if you want something, you got to go out
Right.
and work hard for it.
Right.
Otherwise, you could end up back here, working a minimum wage type of a job. But I mean, there's a lot of qualities. Even working in the funeral home industry. My high school girlfriend back then, at the time, her mom owned one of the funeral homes in town, and I remember her telling me if I wanted to be a part of the family, I was going to have to learn the family business. So,
Oh. That's a tough interview question right there.
yeah, she told me if I wanted to be a part of the family, that I have to, learn the family business. And just being even in that industry, it even taught me the importance of not taking days for granted, because growing up in a small town like that, a lot of the people that I saw pass away over the course of 3 or 4 years that I kind of did that were people that I knew. There were people that,
Right.
family members that I knew, and I knew how they treated these people while they were alive. So, being able to reflect in these moments made me realize the importance of valuing people while they're here. And that's something that I still carry with me to this day.
I want to go back really quickly. I want to give a shout out to your coach in high school. What was his name? What is his name?
Coach Herbert Williams.
Okay, I just want to give him his props.
A bunch of herbs there, huh? It's a bunch of herbs.
There are. So you heard what she said, your girlfriend in high school, and you went.
Her mother said that. Yeah.
Oh, her mother. But you took her up on it and went and worked in the funeral home?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember one of the first calls I got. That was when I got the call, because she said, "Hey, we have a pickup over here," and I think it was Holly Grove, Arkansas. It's probably about 20 miles away from my hometown, and her son wasn't available to go pick up the body. So she said that she was going to send her daughter over there with the hearse, and we were going to drive over there together and get it. And I said, "Huh?" She said, "Huh, you can hear me. If you're going to be a part of this family, you are going to have to learn the family business." But my grandfather already had worked with her, before over a course of time. But
Right.
that was my kind of my introduction. It really allowed me to value life even
Sure.
more. Something that I plan to even speak more about as I extend my speaking career.
Sure. No, I think that was, it's interesting how the experiences we go through in life mold us into who we become. And while you may, other kids may see that as weird and strange and yucky and all those kind of things, it actually adds value to you as a person and how you also talk to other people and go forward with that. When did you
Hey,
start playing basketball? You said you started playing organized sports, but when did you pick up a basketball and why?
I would say probably the first time I remember actually playing basketball, I think I was 6 years old. There was a school called Marion Anderson High School. It used to be the African American school in my hometown where all the black kids went. And it was right across the street, pretty much in the field from my projects. And during the summer, they would open up this gym like, once a month. I mean, once a week for us to go in there and play basketball. And I remember that being my first experience. And I remember throwing the ball. We were playing kind of full court, and I shot on the wrong end of the basket and actually went in. Before then, I never really remembered, other than playing on the streets. My first real experience was, in seventh grade. That was organized basketball. Other than that, it was visits to Memphis. My cousins, they had a basketball hoop outside, and I remember that, I feel like they were the luckiest people in the world. When I would go and visit them, I would be out there at night working on my left hand layups, right hand layups. I remember the excitement of being in Memphis at my uncle's house when Louisville and Memphis State would play each other back in the day. So these are things that, kind of ignited my
Right.
fire and showed me, what was possible. So all the experiences are things that I value. And, at the end of the day, all we have is these experiences that we get to share. And that's a part of why we've been so blessed, people like myself and Michael,
Right.
to have these, trips around the world and amazing people that we get to meet. But we also get to realize that we're pretty amazing people in ourselves.
yeah.
Yes.
Hey man, I know you were, you kind of answered what I wanted to ask, but you were, and your son is too, as a multi-sport athlete. You were a pretty good athlete all around. I think you could have did anything you wanted to if you put your mind to it. You were that kind of athlete. You were probably could have played baseball, football, definitely with the football. So I remember the story, putting the football down before you scored the touchdown. I remember that. Why did you choose basketball? Is it just because of your family influence and what was going? Was it easy for you? And when did you decide like, damn, I'm pretty good at this?
Well, for me, I mean, I played basketball and football all the way up through my 11th grade year, and then 12th grade is when I decided to focus on basketball. But when I knew that I was pretty good in basketball was one summer when I was in the 8th grade. We went to basketball camp over at Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, and it was like I think it was a 7th and 8th grade camp. And so they had these, different leagues and stuff that we were playing. They had these competitions at the end of camp. You'd have 3-point shootout championship. You'd have free throw shooting championship. They gave out hustle awards. And at the end of the camp, out of about 120 kids that were in my grade and another, 200 kids, I won all the awards. I won the one-on-one award. I won the 3-point shootout. I won the free throw. I won the hustle award, which was dictated on how you played when the teams played. And it was at that point when I knew, even though I was 5'4", that I could really do something in the game of basketball.
Okay, I want to go.
I don't even remember. Sorry, I don't even remember being this short. I'm sorry.
So what? So what did you say? You were 5 foot what?
I was 5'4" when I was in the 8th grade.
Ooh, I'm 5'3.5". I want to go back to a comment Michael made. He said that you put the football down before you scored the touchdown. I want to hear. I know our listeners want to hear that little tidbit. So what is that story?
So when you talk about sports, I mean, football is probably and has always been my favorite sport. So that was really my first organized sport that I had ever played. And when I was in 7th grade, our very first football game that I organized, I've ever played. Pads, we're getting ready to hit people. We were in Elaine, Arkansas, and coach called my play, the first play of the game from the 35-yard line. We got 65 yards to score a touchdown, and I was playing right halfback. I mean, the sun is setting, the crowd is. It's a pretty good crowd for a 7th and 8th grade game because the junior high game is coming up next. Right. So coach called sweet left. I took the ball, I ran to the left side of the field, decided there were too many people on that side, so I reversed field, went to the other side, and before I knew it, there was nothing but open end zone for me. So I started running down the sideline. I put the ball down. As I got close, I turned around and started to point, into the crowd, and I can look and see the 8th and 9th graders pointing back at me. I'm thinking that they're celebrating with me when actually they were telling me that I had put the ball down at the 1-yard line, and my best friend ended up recovering it, who was my high school basketball coach's son. And from that point on, it was pretty difficult for me to get into the end zone. But I did score a couple more touchdowns, and it taught me to run to the pole, and it also taught me to finish what you started in life. You got to run through the end zone. You can't come up short. You have to stay focused and realize where you are. You have to be aware. And that was a lesson that I learned from that.
I think that's true because I think a lot of kids celebrate too soon. And they celebrate way too soon, and they stop putting effort into their future because they're going with the quick celebration.
Hey, Herb, what did our coach used to say? Act like you what?
Act like you've been there.
Yes, act
like you've been there before. So
yes. Shout out to the late great Charles Tex Harrison.
So yeah, I mean, it was around 8th grade, but then once I got into to be a senior in high school, when I played in 11th grade, I was growing. I grew from 5'8" to about 6'1.5", and I was having ankle issues. So football season, I was actually pretty good. I kicked field goals. I played offense and defense. I deep snapped on the punts. But during that same summer is when I started to dunk. Like I went to summer basketball camp with my coach and my teammates, and I was a whole different person. I'm 6'1". I'm jumping out of the gym, and it made it easier for me to make the decision to go ahead and focus on basketball, especially when it's 105 degrees outside in Brinkley, Arkansas in the summertime. Yeah. And you got those tour days going on. I decided to take my talents into the gymnasium.
I think that was a smart idea there. When did you start getting recruited by colleges?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. For me, I wasn't a person that was highly recruited. I had a couple of division NAIA offers actually in Arkansas, Harding University, University of Arkansas, Monticello, I think the University of Ozarks. So there was not a line of schools that were offering me scholarships. And what happened was a young man from my hometown, Walter Camper, was playing basketball at Centenary College, which is located in Shreveport, Louisiana. He was from my hometown. He was going into his junior year, and he ended up getting hurt his freshman year, so he had a whole year to recover. And during that time, he ended up coming to see me play a couple of games over Christmas break, and he told me, he said, I'm going to tell I'm going to tell Centenary College about you. And his father said the same thing. His father traveled to all his games, 4 hour drive. He told, back and forth. And what happened was the season ended, and I didn't have a lot of people recruiting me. And Centenary reached out. He kept his word. He told Centenary
Right.
that I was all state qualified. On the SAT ACT test, all state, playing in the all state all star game, and I was somebody that was being recruited. And they offered me a scholarship without actually ever seeing me play a game to a
So,
Division I school.
so let me ask you this. Why do you think, looking back now, why do you think you were not recruited by more colleges?
Well, I mean, I was a late bloomer for
Right.
one. In my town, we didn't get a lot of coverage, so to speak. We were like a Class 2A school out of what
Right.
the level of possibly being 5. But I don't have any regrets or any
No.
hard feelings about it. It worked out exactly how it was supposed to. But at the same time, I think that now I would love to have some of the tools that they have right now to be able to put videos out and
Sure.
have
Yeah.
the cameras inside the gym. But I think it was just a matter of, being able to reach out to the right people, in a
Right.
sense.
Justin Wimmer, we had him on the show a while back. Justin Wimmer actually wasn't planning on going to college. Justin had played with me in Memphis,
That's right.
Yeah.
and his dad made a tape of him, man, and sent it out to people, man. And that's how he got on, man. So it's not just, I mean, times have changed very quickly, man. Hey, what was your mindset going into college? Like, okay, you got this D1 scholarship, man. What is your mindset? I'm going to get in there. I'm going to outwork everybody. What's going on? What's your mindset?
Oh man, my mindset going in was, I really didn't know, I didn't know what to expect. I was one of 2 freshmen going in, but really my mindset was to make sure I didn't flunk out, to make sure that I took care of things in the classroom, because that was one of the things that Coach Williams really stressed and expressed. He talked about young people who had gone to college in that first semester, they partied and,
Yes.
did this and that. I was prepared for that. It took me 2 years before I really even went to my first party on campus, just because of what he had, instilled in me. So my main thing was to go in there, focus on education, focus on basketball, do what I'm told, do whatever, the coaches needed me to do. And that's what I went in with, that attitude. And I think that's what, allowed me to be able to fit in so well. My freshman year, I probably should have redshirted. I didn't play very much, but they actually, put me on the court for a few games, and it was a blessing. I learned a lot. I had a lot of guys who were older, 22, 23-year-old
Right.
guys, a couple guys who had transferred from like New Mexico Military Institute. So they taught me some disciplinary things that they learned there. So me going in, it was, I had a girlfriend already from high school, so I wasn't worried about girls. I was just worried about my one girlfriend, from high school. So it wasn't a girl factor. So it was just focusing on hoping that I could graduate and having a pretty good career. Of course, we all wanted to go pro in a sense, but for me, that didn't really happen until my junior year, when I realized that there was really a real possibility that it could happen.
So when you went into college, what was your mindset about what you were going to do after college?
So my mindset for me, well, again, back to my high school basketball coach, he was a health and physical education major. I followed him a lot. I love the fact that he had summers off for the most part, where he could do whatever
Right.
that he wanted. And I love the fact that he impacted me the way that he did. And I felt like if I could be that same influence, that he was, that I should major in what he did. And he's an educator, so I decided to major in health and physical education, just to always have something to, in a sense, fall back on.
That's what's up, man.
And so, once I got there, I had already pretty much decided what I was going to major in.
I already
Right.
knew that. Just for everybody to know, I know your whole life story.
So to follow that train of thought, when you said when you were a junior, you started thinking about basketball playing after college. And so how did that come about, and what did you start thinking then? Like, what do you think your options were as a junior?
Well, I had a pretty good sophomore year. I went from not playing at all to actually not starting, but playing, 23 out of 40 minutes a game. And I ended up averaging like 7.6 rebounds a game. And now at this point, these guys who were juniors were seniors, and they're out the door. So I'm next up.
Right.
And going into that next year, I was the person who was, leaned on to lead the team, to, rebound, score. And I ended up having a great junior year where I led the conference in scoring. I was top 10 in rebounding as a guard. You know, I was one of the tops in the nation, even in steals. And so at this point, going into your senior year, now you start to look at the magazines that they put out in, you know, in the record stores back in the day. You walk through the mall and they put out the preseason players of the year, and I'm opening up the magazines and it's saying, you know, Trans-America Athletic Conference preseason player of the year, Herbert Lang, and it's saying, you know, Tack, you know, leading scorer from last year and giving all the reasons why I'm the top NBA pro prospect. So when you start seeing stuff like this, you begin to believe that, okay, there is something else possible after this. And so at that point, going into my senior year, I really felt like I had a chance to go, you know, play professionally somewhere.
Did that make you shift? Did academics become a back burner when you started seeing those magazines and started, you know, believing the hype and seeing those things? Did academics take a back seat to that?
I would have to say no, because I was already comfortable. I'm in a routine now. In my senior year, I was student athlete of the year. My grades went up even more. You know, it's funny. I was listening to the Jerome Williams podcast, and he talked about when he got to college. You know, we travel a lot.
Yes.
And when he shared the part about if I was in town, I was in class. That's the same concept that I had. I never missed a class if I was in town. I don't care if we got back at 3 o'clock in the morning. And those teachers, they appreciated that. You know, they appreciated the fact that you're traveling, you got back at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're still willing to get up and make that sacrifice and show your face, you know, that you're here to learn. And so I would love to just encourage any athletes that are listening, any job, you know, show up, you know, show up for the job, show up for work. You know, don't always look for the, you know, to take the days off, and just show up. And, you know, there's always a good outcome. And I never failed a class while I was there, as long as I showed up.
That's right. I love that our guests are quoting previous episodes.
I mean, they're listening. There you go.
I know. And it's interesting, you know, thinking back to Jerome's interview also, you both had really hard work ethics growing up. And I think that was, and you both went into college with that educational mindset as well. And I think that speaks a lot to both of your careers.
So your senior year, after your senior year, last game, what's going through your mind?
My senior year, last game, I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to the NBA because I didn't average even more than I did the year before. I'm 16.6, but I was still excited. I was focused again on graduating. At the end of my senior year, I remember going into my coach's office and asking him if he thought he could get me on in the college dunk contest, which is something that I had previously seen you on years before. And what he did was
I raised him. I told you I raised him.
he recommended that I get with our student manager, put together a little highlight tape from some of the games throughout the course of the year of me dunking, and also to go in the gym and just do some dunks. And he went in, my athletic trainer, Josh Stone, shout out to him, videoed me doing regular dunks. We put together a highlight tape. We did this like within a day. We FedExed it over to the people who were coordinating the event, Intersport Athletics. The next day, they called me back and said that they were going to bring me in. It was like all within a couple of weeks.
Right.
And so, I mean, I got an opportunity to go out there and compete at the college slam dunk contest on ESPN in San Antonio at the Final Four. Had an opportunity to compete against guys like Felipe Lopez, who I had witnessed being on Sports Illustrated as I went into college, guys like Ruben Patterson. And, you know, me coming from the smallest Division I school in the country, I was able to take those guys down. And I think that's something that, you know, helped put me on the map and propel my opportunity to become a Globetrotter.
Right.
Or anything.
So let's talk about the NBA draft. So did you go through the process of the draft?
So when I came out in 98, the NBA had a lockout, which was not a good look was not a good look for a guy coming from a small Division I school. They didn't start the season, I think, until February. Right. So at this point, I'm back in school, finishing up my student teaching. I had a semester left, so it gave me an opportunity to not even have to worry about that. I had some offers to go overseas and play basketball. I think one was like in Cyprus. I had a chance to go play in the IBA, but I decided since Centenary College was going to continue to pay for my education for this extra semester, I should go ahead and take care of it while I can. And I ended up finishing and graduating and worked as a personal trainer for about 10 months before I actually got the call from the Globetrotters that I was going to be invited to their training camp.
Who called you? Did I call you? Who called you?
Chad Gross. Chad Gross called me.
Okay.
So how did they hear about you? How did the Globetrotters hear about you?
So the way that the Globetrotters really heard about me, a good friend of mine, his name is Alan Sahatza. He played soccer at Centenary. He's still a good friend of mine. He and I were roommates for a couple years. He went to a Globetrotter game while I was working as a personal trainer. They came to our campus and put on the show. And the feeling that he got after the game, we were roommates. He came home super excited about, having seen the Globetrotters, but he had this idea that I could be a Globetrotter. He was saying to me, you can do the things that they can do. If not, you can learn them. And I just remember, and I've shared this a couple of times, laughing at him, because he had a program with an actual 800 number in the book. And I laughed and was like, man, get that, program out of my face. And to make a long story short, about 2 weeks later, I came home from work, from personal training, really making about $7 an hour. And I asked Alan, hey man, where's that program at with that 800 number that you got? And I actually ended up sending the same video that I sent to the slam dunk people, as well as the highlight tape. And they invited me to the training camp. They said, we're going to put you down for our training camp. This was in March, I'd say. They called me in August and said, will you be ready to come to camp in 2 days? And
Wow.
yeah,
And
so I mean, that's the way.
Were you hurt? Didn't you hurt yourself your rookie year in training camp?
So a lot of people don't know this. I've not shared it with a lot of people. I was playing summer league basketball that summer as well. And the week before, the Globetrotters actually called me to invite me to camp. I sprained my ankle, probably worse than I ever had in my life. And I didn't reveal this as I went into camp, because I was determined that whatever I had to do, I was going to make it happen. But yeah, that first training camp that I went into, I ended up, I was hurt the whole training camp. I remember getting about 4 days into it and, kind of telling one of the trainers that I turned my ankle. At this point, I had really kind of proven myself, but I had a torn ankle all the way through, that training camp. But I was able to make it through because I was determined not to keep making that $7 an hour, and I wanted to travel and see the world as well. So it was a little bit of mind over matter. But this opportunity came because of somebody looking out for me, somebody believing in me, actually more than I believed in myself, and seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I, continue to owe him a debt of gratitude to this day, because who knows, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation if he hadn't taken a stand for me. So that's why I'm big on, bringing people together and trying to take a stand. Yeah.
You welcome, Herb. I'm just kidding.
Michael,
appreciate you too, Michael.
Michael and I have talked about that a lot, about, people don't always see the value in themselves. They don't always see, because we're hardest on ourselves. And I think also for women, we don't necessarily believe that we're as good as everybody else sees us. And I think that's important, that, for all those people out there, if it's always good to give, and that giving will come back to you twofold, I believe. But I always think It's good to say, what you see in others. And that for me, that's how I got into photography. I wanted to show women, especially, how they could be seen by other people, is really kind of what it is.
I want to put this story out there. I've talked to Herb about it before, but I just want to let everybody know what a great guy Herb is. I remember when you play for the Trotters for a while, you kind of know it. Herb knows what I'm talking about. Like when they bring guys into camp and you can like, oh, he's going to be good, or I don't know if he's, has what it takes. I remember Herb, I don't know if you were still hurt or not, but I just remember this, your rookie year, after 2 days, kind of sore. We got in a hot tub. It was me, you, and another player.
Charles Barkley. No, I'm just playing. Me, you, and Charles Barkley.
No, I just remember us sitting there, man, and you were you sitting there with us, man, and you were, you were hungry. I can tell you were hungry, but you were humbled also. But I just told you, I remember saying, man, I just, something about you, man, you have what it takes, man. And I was, I'm glad that I was right, man. I'm glad that you did prove me right, man, that you did have what it takes, man. And I saw your hard work. I saw when I was out handling the basketball before the game, her right there in the hallway with me, doing my routine. I'm doing his routine. He made sure we could even do everything the Globetrotter asked us to do. And that's why I think your career lasted so long. And that's why we got to kind of call our shots and do what we want to do, because you could do everything. on the
Mhm.
court. Whatever they ask you to do, you could do it, man. And I saw it in you from the beginning. So you made me proud again, man.
And I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that because I remember those hot tubs. You know, those hot tub days. For me, a part of one of the blessings of growing up with the grandparents that I mentioned was a source of wisdom. You know, learning how to listen, learn how to
Right.
get a feel for the room. I learned that from my high school basketball coach, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. You know, there's certain ways that you get to lead. You know, you don't always have to come in being boisterous. You can kind of feel your way from the back, and then when you kind of get ready to speak up, people will listen to you. And so for me, being able to sit in that hot tub with veterans like Mike Wilson, X-Free Hip, I think I remember even Otis Key back then being a part of it. I just remember, you guys sharing the experiences that you had already had. And to
Yeah.
me, it was exhilarating to hear those experiences and knowing that I would have the opportunity to go to some of these places that I studied about, in college and in high school. And you guys have already lived it. For me, there was no way I was going to mess that up, So I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys, for believing in me. And I think that we also, kind of had a special bond, you and I, because we grew up so close to each other. We're just, down the road from each other. And
Right.
I admired you and I was a fan of yours and I'm still a fan of yours to this day. So
Oh
I
man, same here,
appreciate you.
brother.
Yep. I appreciate you. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you.
Same here, brother. I appreciate you as well.
You know,
So, go ahead, Sandy.
well, I was going to say, you talk about the benefits of listening. And I think that going back to kids these days, I think a lot of them don't necessarily take the time to listen, especially listen to wisdom from others and experiences and learning about that. And that was one thing, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have the podcast also. But I want to ask about, because I love travel and I love all those experiences. What and it's probably hard for you to figure out what was the best experience or memory, but what were maybe the top 3 that really affected you when you were traveling around the world?
I'd probably have to say the first memory that affected me was the first time that I had a chance to play in front of my family in Little Rock. And I mean, I remember seeing my grandparents there, my mom, all my siblings who were still like high school age.
Right.
And, just being able to kind of be a part of that team that was on the marquee that they pulled up to the arena, to be associated with the person who was standing behind the rope, signing autographs as a person that thousands of people standing around the court admired, to me made me feel a sense of even more responsibility, but a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
So, as I think about, my career, that would definitely have to be one of the ones that stand out. As we move forward into it, I'd have to say, I mean, I had a chance to meet President Obama twice at the White House while he served as president during the annual Easter egg roll. The first time I got on to Brett Meister because he didn't get me a good photo. The next year, Brett Meister got me back there again and got me a great photo, with the president. So I mean, I had a chance to shoot basketball with, one of the greatest presidents of all time. And then toward the end of my career in 2015, I had a chance to go to the Vatican and meet the Pope, something that I had witnessed from afar. My friend Elmer Martin, my friend Curly Boo Johnson, my friend Alex Sanders, and Sweet Lou Dunbar do early in my career. I had an opportunity to do the same thing that they had to do about 15 years later, except I was going to be the one designated to spin the basketball on the Pope's finger. And for me, experiences like that are almost out of body. But at the same time, it brings a sense of realization. The things that I share with people in meeting, the Pope and meeting President Obama is that they were human, just like me. You know, they have families, they have grandparents, they have, you know, even kids like we do. They're human. They had a dream. They went out and achieved something. And I believe, for as much as I have respect for all people that have accomplished and achieved big things, I think we're all capable. I have the
Sure.
same belief in myself that I get to go out and do big things. I have the same belief in Michael that he gets to go out and do, big things. One of the things about growing up in Brinkley, Arkansas, is I used to get a little bit of that Memphis radio. So on Saturday mornings, you would get a lot of inspiration. You would get, the Black History Month, Martin Luther King, and stuff like that, and realizing that I grew up in a place that, in the middle of, where desegregation started in Little Rock with 1959, and the same place where Martin Luther King was killed. I grew up an hour from that.
Right.
So these are things that impacted me. So to be able to go around the world and meet world leaders like this, it's impactful, and it's some things that I don't take for granted. Michael probably thought I may say the Amazing Race or something like that. Those were
No,
great
no, no.
experiences.
I kind of feel it. But you know what, man? One of our teammates, man, has the ultimate picture, man. He got us beat, Herb. He got a picture with the Pope. He has a picture with Nelson Mandela, and he has a picture with Mother Teresa. He has all three, man. I was just like, wow.
Who is that?
Who is
Curly
that?
Boo Johnson.
Oh.
Curly
I
has
was
a
gonna
picture.
say Curly.
Curly
Yeah.
has a picture with all three. I was like, I can't top that, man. So speaking of the Amazing Race, man, you know, I watched you all the guys all the time. You guys were a fan favorite. Now is the time. We should have did it at the beginning, but I want you to kind of brag on yourself, man. You've kicked the door open. You showed the way of athletes, especially with the Globetrotters. Like you can do so much stuff besides this. Tell me the things that you've done in your tenure, in your lifespan. You know, as far as Amazing Race, and I'm sure you've been on movies and things like that. So break it down for us.
Well, Michael and Sandy. When I was growing up in Brinkley, Arkansas, one of my favorite entertainments was Michael Jackson. So I always wanted to dance and entertain. I remember my mom putting us in a talent show, me and two of my cousins, when I was like 5, 6 years old. Although I was a little bit shy, I always did want to entertain. Even, scoring a couple of touchdowns, I always liked to, dance and celebrate, So
Right.
for me, being able to do something like the Amazing Race, and you say on the Amazing Race, I always tell people I'm a 3-time loser on the Amazing Race, but what it did was extend my career. And for me, having experiences like that, I didn't take them for granted because I realized that there was people that were before me, Mike Wilson, Curly Boo Johnson, Hollywood, these guys who taught me they didn't get these same opportunities. So when I'm running around this world, I'm thinking about them, I'm thinking about, these guys didn't get to do what I'm doing. So I got to represent, them in a positive way. Having a chance to appear on, The Bachelorette for an episode, having a chance to appear on, one of my favorite shows twice, The Price is Right. These are things that I dreamed of, but didn't really, imagine growing up. Being able to be on Jay Leno's show, I think Mike and I may have done that together. Being able to be a part of Little Nicky in 2000. I mean, I'm just a kid older of 6 from Brinkley, Arkansas, and here I am in Hollywood hanging out with superstars. So
what about the house? What about the house you're in right now?
Well, the house that I'm in right now, one of the things that I'm big
I
on.
remember it was on the show though, right?
I'm big on connection. So one of my good friends who I connected with in 2009 from the Amazing Race, Brian, he was one of the competitors. Brian Kleisman is one of the competitors on the very first season that we did in 2009. And I think it was 2019, he and his wife, Mika, got a show on HGTV called 100 Day Dream Home. And the thing about people like Mike Wilson, people like Brian, is that we stay connected. Over the course of years, a decade, I always reach out to Brian, say hello to him, check and see how he's doing. His dad and I used to play Words with Friends when I'm touring on the road, So when I meet people, I value the relationship that I have. And I randomly check on people. I don't care if it's been a month or 3 months. If I think about you, I'll send you a message. So I just remember my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we were sitting at home watching 100 Day Dream Home. And I told her, because we had been talking about, getting another property. I said, what do you think about, seeing about getting a house built on the show? And we agreed to it. I ended up reaching out to Brian, and it was simple as showing interest. And he said, hey, let's do it. But that's the value of
Right.
connection. And it doesn't mean that you go out and do stuff for people because you expect something in return. I didn't know that Brian was going to have his own show. He owned a couple workout gyms around here, but it just turns out that that's what led me to where I am right now. So just being able to connect with people and realizing the value that you have, I'm realizing more and more. And I told Mike this, people value us. We got to start looking at ourselves the way that other people look at us as superstars. When we step in the room, we have a way of changing the dynamic in a way that you can't even understand. And this is something that I've even learned as a part of retirement, as a part of being a member of the Retired Players Association. When I left the Globetrotters in 2018, I had an idea that I wanted to do a sports game show. Do you know that I was able to draw out a treatment and actually fly down and get an actual pitch opportunity with the creator of The Amazing Race, who I also have a relationship with? After every season, win, lose, or draw, I always sent the email to let them know how much I appreciated the opportunity, not just for the Globetrotters, but just for myself personally.
Right.
And just by doing simple things like that, they actually built a treatment, for my show, which I'm still pitching.
Right.
I've had an opportunity to be a part of movies since I left. I've been on, other different shows. I go out into different schools speaking on exactly what you're talking about. I was just in California speaking in 3 elementary schools last month, one also in Texas. I have several more coming up. I have a bullying convention coming up that I'm doing. Going to be one of the speakers in Riverside, California. I have a whole kindness week that I did last year with Breeze Airways that I'm partnering up to look at doing something with them again, but also leveraging relationships with associations that I'm in as well if I see potential fit. So it's important to me with the roles and with the things that I've been given, the blessings and opportunities that I use it to create opportunities for not only myself, but for other people who've been down similar paths, be that players, be that young people, just anybody who can use inspiration or guidance in a way that I can give it.
So let's get into it. Let's get into this fifth quarter. It came to me, fifth quarter, what we all about, life after the game and knowing, speaking of relationships, me and you would talk maybe a few times a year when you were still playing, just kind of see what was going on. Just like you said, see what was happening, see how you're doing. And one of the questions I would always ask you is, hey man, how long you gonna play? I was like, man, I'm gonna ride this as long as I can. I was like, okay, man, just be prepared. So tell us about the fifth quarter when your fifth quarter happened to you. I mean, what did you panic? How did it make you feel? Did you like, all right, I got the game plan, or because of your extended career, being on the Amazing Race and things like that, did it also put you in a different mindset?
For me, the call, the fifth quarter, it came abruptly. It was unexpected, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm going into my 18th year. These last couple of years, I've been acting as player coach and in that role. I mean, you're in charge of the whole entire tour. I've taken a couple of teams down to South America. I've been doing a lot of PR. I had just come back a couple of weeks from Europe doing PR, and I get a phone call thinking that I'm about to get the assignment for my next tour. But it was that phone call saying that, hey, it's over with. It's time to go into another direction. And you can imagine it happened in the middle of the day, sitting at the table with one of my best friends who I played college basketball with. We were actually having lunch. And that's when the call happened. And for me, I immediately remember having to get up from the table and leave the dinner and just went home. I went home and I cried probably for about 24 hours straight, but I also remembered to show myself some gratitude. And also during that crying and whatever it was I was going through, I made a list of people that I wanted to thank, for helping create that opportunity. And within 2 days, I made sure that I emailed everybody within that office, all my coaches, all the people in the staff who I felt contributed to, have me having a long career. And at that point, it's still the desperation, the what's next,
Right.
sinking in. I did a good job saving money in my 401k, so to speak. So I knew I had a little bit of a cushion to figure out things, but I didn't think that the Globetrotters would let me go like that. I thought it would be something where I would be able to decide, on my own. But at the same time, I realized that I had some brothers that I could communicate with and reach out to. I remember reaching out to guys like Mike Wilson. I reached out to Curly Boo Johnson. I reached out to Kevin Special K Daly. I reached out to Derek Grant, all guys who have been faced with similar situations of a transition. And for me, that is what helped get me through. And even through that support, that's what inspired me to start our Facebook group that we started. If you look at the date, it started around 2018. And this is when I began to go on the journey of leadership outside of being a Globetrotter and representing and realizing that I'm more than just, a Globetrotter. So I ended up signing up for a leadership course where I went down to San Diego for about 3 months, learning about, who I am and the value that I bring. So the Facebook group, that happened. Then the leadership happened. I started selling insurance, and I just began to realize how much people valued me. Even selling insurance, going into people's houses, telling stories. I mean, some of them recognized me, but they were just lit up and amazed that a Globetrotter was at their house. And I began to realize I have even more value than just showing up like that. So, a lot of the things that I'm working on right now are directly contributed toward trying to create opportunities for, guys like myself, guys like Mike, people for us to be able to get back together and have, something to lean on, a group to lean on, a group to fall back on, a group that we can work together in, in business. A lot of us, we know each other better than we know ourselves. Our families
Right.
don't know us as well as I know Michael for a course of 10 years, waking up next to him on the bus, knowing how he is in the morning, you know. So, I mean, there's just so many possibilities with what we have. We have so much value that we don't even understand the value. We're able to go into, you know, a room by ourselves. You know, Mike could go into a room by himself and entertain 10,000 people. And I know this because I've done it. And it's just a matter of us, you know, really just continuing to come together, share ideas, have discussions like we're having right now, and you know, continue to grow. And one of the things that I'm proud of, even with Mike, is that when we used to do the Zoom calls, one of the things I love about Mike is he's real good at delegating. He knows the questions to ask, and I know that he loved those Zoom calls, you know. And so now to see him doing this with the consistency that you guys are doing it, I know that he is in his element, and you know, having conversations about speaking. I see us all one day sitting on stage speaking together, doing panel discussions. That's what's in my vision. And some of the things I'm working on, I can't share everything, but those are things that I'm working on, and they're coming to fruition as a result of connections and actually reaching out and caring about people.
No, I totally love everything you say, and I agree with you. And connections, you know, I look at how this podcast came about, and it was the connection actually through basketball that Michael and I met each other. But also, you know,
I just want to say this before you finish.
Oh,
I saw something. I told you my superpower is to see things at 50,000 feet. Like when I saw her, but I saw you, Sandy. I'm serious. I'm not trying to get sentimental. And I saw something about you that I wanted to be around you, and I wanted you in my circle. That's why I called you.
you're gonna make me cry now.
So it's something about you. It is. So
what I will say is, you know, our first few interviews, Michael, just like you, it's like you guys don't see yourselves from the public's perspective. And you do, like, I have to remind him, I'm like, you're an effing Harlem Globetrotter. Like, dude, really? Like, you don't think they're going to talk to you?
I still brag back today. I'm like, he holds the Guinness Book of World Records
I
to this
know,
day over
right?
20 years ago. You know how many basketball players have walked this earth over the past
I
20
know.
years that have been great athletes
I
that
know.
could jump, but nobody still
Right.
to this day over 20 years
I know.
has not broken that record. I mean, I feel like it's an honor that I get to be on this podcast, that I get to, you know, call him my friend. And we talked about this. Like, there's value in you sending a text message to someone, you know, them
I know.
hearing your voice. It changes their day. There's value.
He was shocked that all these guys from Memphis actually answered his phone call. I'm like, are you serious? But you know, I look at everything you just said, and I think so many times people don't see the value in themselves, but also don't want to reach out to others. It takes, you know, I love that saying, it takes a village to raise raise a child. But I think that groups and connections help us get better, and we help each other. And I love the fact that you guys started those Zoom calls, you know, when COVID hit, and I've been pushing. I'm like, you guys need to have more like get-togethers. I think that there is power in groups. And I think that, you know, having those interactions, having those group discussions, I think that it makes all of you better people. And then you go out and you share that with everybody else, and it makes everybody else be better. And it gives so much value to everyone around you. And I just love all of those discussions. And, you know, I've talked before about, you know, when we started this podcast, I never realized I would love it as much as I have. You know, I just love, everybody's story is different. Everybody has so much words of wisdom to give. And I just love that whole prospect. And I'm getting a little sentimental now, but
it's okay. It's okay.
So you go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, even a part of when we talk more about the fifth quarter, I mean, this past 6 years since I left that job that I've been doing for 18 years, you know, I mean, nights I cried, you know, wondering why it ended the way that it ended. But at the same time, there's been so many days when I realize why I haven't just settled to do certain things, because I realize I'm a person that gets to think big and bold the way that I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I dreamed to be a professional athlete, but there was other things that I dreamed of as well. There's lessons that I learned from going to church with my grandmother and going to different revivals and walking through the street with my grandmother with, with different people. There's things, that I learned. You get to suffer, you get to share. Like you say, through this 6 years, there's been bouts with, moments of depression. There's been,
Yes.
conversations where you have to, really lock in. There's been times when I may not talk to somebody for a week or so, just to figure out my space where I'm walking and meditating. There's things that we get to go through. We get to go through these things, but as friends and as supporters, we get to be there regardless. We don't get to keep a record of, oh, he didn't reach out to me last time. We get to be there for each other when we need them, because you never know what a person's going through from day to day. I could be having a great day today. Mike could be having a horrible day. He could be just putting on, but it's important that we're able to share these things. I mean, and when people can realize that people that they admire, because they do admire us, they admire the people that we've met, they admire the people that we are. When people can realize that everyday people are going through the same things as the celebrities that they think, so to speak,
Yes.
it hits home even more. It means even more. It makes you more authentic. And I've even made a vow to be even more authentic in the things that I talk about, moving forward and being able to share it, not just sharing always the highlight reel, because that's what we share. But there's a lot more to it than that. And it's a part of the fifth quarter. It's a part of the fifth quarter. It's a part of the overtime. It's a part of life.
It
I
is.
think what in my book I'm writing about, I think what we need to recognize, and if I could talk to the players, and I really wanted to reiterate this, that it's, you can love your job, you can love what you do, it is still transactional. They have a business to run, and we have a life to live, and they paid us handsomely to do a job. And I think it becomes personal with athletes, and they become involved. It's like businesses don't have time to sit back and be like, oh, I love you, I love what you did back then. It's like, okay, what have you done for me lately? Business has always been like that. And if you don't, you're going to get left behind. And I think athletes have a tendency to, not just athletes, just people in general, have a tendency to fall in love. Like, I've given my all to this job.
Right.
Well, they're paying you for this job too. So I think
They gave you an opportunity. And even with that said, and I totally agree with what you're saying right there. I always say, man, the Globetrotters gave me an opportunity that I couldn't have, dreamed of. I mean, if I played in the NBA, I don't know if I'd traveled to 88 countries at this point in my life. I don't know if I would have met, the president. I don't know if I'd have been on The Amazing Race, but they gave me the opportunity. But at the same time, with that opportunity, some of us are given, we get to make a difference within that space, whatever that looks like. And if that looks like going back and tweaking some things and figuring out a way to make things better for people who are coming back through us, after us, that their transition a little bit, be a little bit easier, then that's something that I'm also focused on. So just because I got the opportunity, I'm grateful for it, but I also am involved in that opportunity. And I want that opportunity to be something that we can enjoy and be proud of for the rest of our lives without any animosities.
Yeah. I think it's really hard for athletes. I've talked to even former teammates that they were on like how it was done. I mean, I think they get caught up on how it was done and not why it was done. And
But it goes back to that personal thing. I think that, and that's with anyone, not just athletes. We get caught up in that job title. We get caught up in the identity of the company, the entity we're working for. And then when it ends, we feel like it's a personal thing, depending on how it's done. And I think that's for anyone.
Yeah, but do companies, the question is, do companies have time to do that? Do companies have time to, or they have to move on to the next, because things are changing so quickly?
I think that, if somebody resigns, you have, depending how that is, you have a few, when I resigned from my last, from my job in Memphis back in 2004, I gave them a 6-week notice. Yeah. But there are other people that.
But big Herb knows this. Even in show business, it's big results, but it's big business, and big business equals it's ugly sometimes.
It is ugly.
It's ugly most of the time. You just see the finished product. So,
but I mean, the important thing is, I mean, in business, and this is what I feel like I've done really well, and moving forward. The longer that I was involved in the business, the more that I learned. So the things that I learned during that business, given that opportunity, have allowed me to do what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm so grateful that the Globetrotters gave me the opportunity. I learned about branding. Kindness is free. I learned that I can, go into a school and speak and create my own program. I learned that I can go into a university, and get paid. I learned that I can communicate with people that live in different parts of the world, and I know how to do it. I know what merchandise looks like. I know what the cost looks like. These are things that I get to take from them, from the opportunity that they gave me and share it and continue to do what I was doing with them. Just because I'm not, or we're no longer with that, group or whatever, we still can do something within that frame reference that we enjoyed during that career. It's like when you share with kids, hey, you may not be able to go play in the NBA, but hey, maybe you can be a coach. Maybe you can be the athletic trainer. Maybe you can be the team owner. You can still be in that career path. You can still be doing what gives you passion. And I get a lot of joy in going to these elementary schools and middle schools and talking to these kids, because for me, it's something that I do without the least bit of effort. And that's what you call a gift, the thing that you do with the least amount of effort. And, it's a skill that I gained during that time traveling around the world. I mean, I feel comfortable speaking in front of a group of people who can't even understand my language, just based on the fact that we were performing in countries where people couldn't speak the same language. So it's such a blessing. We have such a unique brand, a unique gift. We as athletes in general have, had unique opportunities, but it's just a matter of realizing how much we enjoyed and how we can apply these things so us to continue to make a difference in other people's life and to continue to enjoy life at the same time.
Right.
Really quick, Herb, real quick. Tell us a little bit about Kindness is Free. What does that mean to you?
Kindness is free. So for me, if you ever go back and look in any other programs, I always talk about patience and kindness. That's the Globetrotters programs. But for me, when I wrote my book, Projects, Popes, and Presidents, it was a lot of time for me to kind of go back and reflect on people who helped me in my life, and reflecting the people who helped me and supported me. I realized that a lot of them did it without expecting anything in return. They were kind to me out of the goodness of their heart. The campers back in Brinkley, Arkansas spoke up to Centenary College out of the goodness of their heart. I mean, it's $32,000 a year to go to school there back then. Kindness is free. When I had a chance to go, to go to the college slam dunk contest, my college basketball coach, he didn't have to, arrange that for me or tell me what I needed to do, but he wanted to see me excel. He believed in me. He believed that I could do it, and we put it together and made it happen. I mean, even there's just so many things that have happened. Even my opportunity with the Globetrotters that I shared with you about Allen going to the game and believing in me. That was just something that he felt. It didn't cost him anything. And so for me, just being able to give people compliments, being able to, share positive stories and things like that are kind of what Kindness is Free is about. And when I go into different events, I actually have an award that I hand out to elementary schools, businesses. I have them nominate like kids from each group or people from different departments of work for the Kindness is Free award, which I present at the end of each presentation that I do. So I'm also putting, kind of my money where my mouth is, and presenting awards to people who, for me, I was recognized for making good grades. Of course, I was recognized for being a pretty good athlete, but there was a lot of people who weren't as athletic as me, didn't make the grades that I made, that supported me. Just good people, just kind people that didn't get recognized. So I try to make sure that these people get their recognition as well. And, that's what Kindness is Free is all about. We do basketball clinics. We speak. We do it all. We're spreading kindness around the world the same way we did as Globetrotters.
Awesome.
I want to ask this. So what would you tell a young 8, 9, 10-year-old Herb Lang?
Yes.
And I'm glad you guys asked this. I did look at the preparation, and
You're one
I
of
thought
the
about
few.
it. I thought about it, and I said to myself, I would say to my younger self, I would say, buckle up. This thing is going to be more unbelievable than you can imagine. This life is going to be more unbelievable than you can imagine. I would also say to my 47-year-old self, this life is going to be more unbelievable than you can imagine. But then I mean that all in a good way, because the things I imagined in my life have all come true. Even the bad stuff, the bad things I have imagined and they've happened. But I've learned to have more power in creating, with my visions, the good things. So I can only imagine what amazing things are ahead, not only for myself, but I mean, just the rest of the world. I'm excited about the future with being more connected with Mike. I'm excited about you guys' podcast. I'm excited about people getting on here rating you guys 5 stars like I just did today.
Oh, I
I can't
thank
wait
you
for you
for
guys to
that.
get to your 40th episode. But yeah, I mean,
That was a great answer, man. We did a podcast yesterday with one of the coaches at Memphis, one of the women's coaches at Memphis. She
Oh,
gave a
Harlan
sweet,
Wyatt.
she gave a sweet short answer. You know what she said? I mean,
what she said?
it touched me. She said she would tell herself, her younger self, she would walk in and say, "It's all worth it."
Oh yeah, it is.
That's what she said, and that touched me. That hit home for me. I was just like, wow. I mean, that was she hit it. She hit the nail on the head right there, man. I was very impressed with that answer. So it's all
It's
worth it.
all worth it. It
Oh,
absolutely is. I mean, every emotion that you feel, the joys, the ups and downs, the pains, we go through all of it, for a reason. It's all worth it. And what you're doing right now, what we're doing is leaving a legacy. You're leaving a legacy right now, with your podcast and, all the things that you've
Mm.
accomplished and all the things that I've accomplished that'll be around forever,
right.
and that's
Yeah,
what it's all about. And it's positive and it's impacting people. It's impacting me. That's why I listen to you guys.
that's
Oh,
awesome.
I love that. Thank you.
Big shout out to my man on the tugboat going up and down the Mississippi River too. I know he's one of our
Oh my
big
God,
listeners.
he
I
is
want to
gonna
send a
love
shout
that.
out to him right now because I know he is choo choo
He
up and
is.
down, up and down.
I know,
Big
and
shout out.
I get excited. I'm like, our podcast is being listened to up and down the river. And I met him on Twitter, like literally because he's a Memphis fan. I know. And so, yeah, he's going to love this. Okay. Mike, you got any more questions?
Nah, I'm good. Thank you, Herb,
Okay.
for your time, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, as we come to the end of this fifth quarter podcast, we want to remind everyone, just like Herb said, to give us a follow on Apple, Spotify, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor for our show, you can contact us through our website. Contact us through our website at 5thquarterpodcast.com. And if you're feeling really inspired, we'd love another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps people find our podcast. That's right. Herb's doing the 5. Mike, you want to say thank you? Say thank you.
Just thanks, Herb, man. Thanks for your time, man. You're always a brother with me, man. So I can't wait to see you again.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Continued success, continued consistency, and hey, don't be surprised. There's a lot more people listening and watching than you can imagine. So I appreciate you guys for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to share your platform.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate. Mike's been talking about this. That's right. Kindness
is free.
That's right.
Spread the word.
That's right. So thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast with our guest, Herb Flight Time Lang. All of his social media, websites, everything will be in the show notes. Until next time, remember, change is our ally and it paves the way for greatness. Stay inspired. Have a great rest of the week.